Greetings, Mayor Jeff Schielke speaking to you on Friday, August 20th, 2021. And I've got kind of an interesting, almost end of the summer comments to make here. This past week, we began Batavia Public Schools, and you probably noticed a lot of school bus waiting going on, and a lot of school buses floating around town, and everybody's trying to find the best ways to where to stand and what the route is. And the Batavia Police Chief, Dan Ewell, asked me in this call today to remind everyone to please be careful when you're driving and watch your speeds. The Batavia Police Department is of the opinion that with the pandemic and kind of the reaction to it from people over the past year and a half, that people are putting our foot on the gas a little bit heavier than they used to, and so we're going to be watching, and maybe particularly watching some of the areas around each one of the schools and the high school and the junior high to see if we've got any reckless speeders going on, and we aren't going to be afraid to issue some tickets because it's the safety of the children that we're worried about, and we want to make sure that this year begins on a safe note. So please be aware and watch your speed as you're moving around town, and we've got normal speeds that everybody seems to be able to live with and abide by and is safely enacted throughout the town, and that's the way we want to keep it. So please be careful as you're driving over the next few weeks and you're going into the fall season and then into the winter season, that the Batavia Police are going to be looking out for people that want to go exaggerated speeds in the community of Batavia. The next problem I wanted to just mention, again, the police department shared with me, is we've got some homeless people that are in Batavia, and we've made efforts to try to get these people sited into some type of a residential setting. And quite frankly, some of them just blatantly say they don't want to go no place, they don't want anybody to watch them or be over them. But then we find them like sleeping on playground equipment in some of the local playgrounds or on schoolyards. We found them sleeping on people's front porches when the people are sleep in their house in bed and don't know the people are even there. And one of the more interesting things that's just recently happened is we're finding that some of these folks are perusing the town during the day, and they're finding themselves a big box. And then about 10 o'clock at night or so, they go get this box, and then they take it someplace next to where they can find an electrical outlet, because for whatever reason, most of these folks have a cell phone that they can use, and they need someplace to recharge their cell phone. So that's a very common thing now for homeless people who we're dealing with in Batavia, who get a box to stay the night in, and they put the box next to someplace where there's an outdoor electrical outlet where they can charge up their cell phone. So that's kind of the word from the police department of some of the unique things that we're trying to deal with on an ongoing basis. Obviously, we could have some really bad crime, which thanks to the good work of the police department, I don't think we have much of it, because I think we have the reputation of being a town that's high visibility with its police department. So we may have that one under control, but again, please be careful when you're driving, or specifically if you see somebody curling up to your house in a box. That's something you probably should call the police about. The next thing I wanted to make mention of is the whole situation with the face masks. And in Batavia, we have had a whole bunch of people now wanted to return wearing masks, and I've got one here. I try to keep one in my pocket so that when I go into a store or out into some type of a public gathering, the state of Illinois is asking all of us to wear masks. Now, as I think I've mentioned previously on this report, there are times that everybody gets upset because they don't see somebody wearing a mask, but the bottom line is there really is no law underneath of the mask that says if you don't do it you can be arrested. The state legislature has chosen not to go into that arena, so we're asking for voluntary compliance. And there is something to be worried about with the spread of some of the various types of corona that have now developed. So we want to make sure everybody pays pretty quick attention to this. And specifically with the start of school this year, we want to make sure that we do everything we can to keep any type of disease spread outside of our schools. So again, please wear the mask if you can, and know what the rules are, but again, don't go charging after somebody if they don't have one and scream, I'm going to call the police and have you arrested, because quite frankly, the police can't do that. we've got a couple things coming up here between August 27th and 29th is going to be Windmill City Days, and that's going to be held in in the downtown area. I will leave it at that because they're going to kind of move it around a little bit. And that's largely under the charge of the Batavia Park District and the Batavia Chamber of Commerce. And then the next week we're going to have the Batavia Block Party, and that's going to be over on North River Street. And that's largely under the auspices of downtown Batavia, Batavia Main Street. And we certainly are going to be watching over that one pretty closely. So that's a very popular thing. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're going to, also on that same day, there's going to be a classic car show that's going to line itself up on Houston Street, I believe from at least from Water down to Island Avenue, and they're going to have cars, I guess, on both sides of the street, and people are going to be there to show you their classic cars. So we've got some fun things going to happen. And so one other thing I wanted to cover today is on Monday night, I swore in Eric Blowers as the new Deputy Police Chief for the City of Batavia. He replaces Glenn Autenreith, who just retired after a very worthwhile and dedicated career as the Deputy Chief of the Batavia Police Department. But Deputy Chief Blowers has been with us now a number of years, and I know him to be a very conscientious and caring and dedicated police officer. And I'm sure he's going to be making his presence known in the community in a very favorable manner. We also have done some changing around of some of the staffing in the Batavia Police Department, so you may see a few more female faces out in more public presences, including Officer Gorshi, who is going to be the new officer at Batavia High School. And so we're going to have a female officer as the Batavia High School officer for the coming year. And so we've got some really, I think, trying to do some stuff that really puts a face on Batavia from a very positive and wondrous standpoint. And the last thing I guess I wanted to comment on is last week when I gave this talk, I reached over and got this little medallion that I keep behind my desk here, which is in the form of a heart. It's a piece of rock, and on it it's got the word Batavia, and underneath that it's got the state of Illinois shape with red, white, and blue, then stars to feature the American flag. And I used this last week to illustrate that one of the true, real strengths of Batavia is the support we have for one another, the compassion that we feel for each other, the willingness to be so overly generous with others. And I can think of a number of people who do not want any credit whatsoever, but they're more than willing to write checks to support needy families or good causes. Or I know some people that will go stand in the line at the Jewel, and if they see a family ahead of them that looks like they could be having a hard time buying their groceries, they'll step forward and put their credit card in the machine and pay their bill. I've also heard of situations where people have gone to Aldi and done that, and I've also heard of situations that have taken place at McDonald's restaurants where somebody will see a family and say behind them in the car, it looks like they could use some help, and so they'll say, well, put my card and put their bill on my card and give them their money back or whatever. So generosity and love for one another is a trait that really stands strong in Batavia. And I just wanted to say thank you, because this comment that I made at the end of last week's show, I suppose it was directed at certain people, but it really, everybody was impacted by it. And I've had a number of comments of people say, well, it's nice that the mayor would finally make some comment about something that's kind of an intangible, as to express some appreciation for the love that people in this town show for each other and one another, and how that is a community trait that is not found in every town, and that Batavia really has that is a really strong attribute to what Batavia is all about. So on that note, I'm going to end this week. I wish you all a good week ahead, and I look forward to talking to you next week.